they use the name Nation Rising and they say what they're doing is not a protest. It's a revolution. All right, we'll see if they live.
The picture in the background looks suspiciously like a protest.
This is really paradoxical. So why would you say it's not a protest, it's a revolution? Why wouldn't you say, look, guys, this isn't a revolutionary movement. This is a totally reasonable request to amend the tax code, to amend how taxation works in Canada. And here's how we're going to accomplish it. Here's the plan. We're going to do it the same way PCRM does, or the same way any other lobbying for government change does. It makes no sense. Instead, what they want to do is front on some kind of left-wing radical aesthetic.
Maybe they're just trying to be obtuse about it, and like that they're not a vegan movement, or appeal to people who aren't vegan. But
I see what you mean. Right. So yeah. So they want to appeal to people who are outside of the vegan fold or something. Okay, yeah, maybe people
that care about reducing the subsidies for the dairy industry. Okay. But aren't really vegan. I don't know.
Those people.
It's a very small number of people that
those people. Would you
to.
Describe them as a nation? Would you describe? I don't even want to describe vegans as a nation. Like, that's what I thought the point was. Like, there's like a nation of vegans that's ready to rise up. But if you're talking about this larger category of soft core, slightly uncomfortable with government subsidies for the meat industry, not really vegan, maybe not even reducitarian. Are they a nation? Do they comprise a nation that's going to rise up and change the history of Canada? I don't see it. You say it's not just a protest. You say it's a revolution. Okay, so are you going to occupy a building? Are you going to burn it down? What you say it's not a protest. So what am I being invited to? A revolution. Are you going to shoot people to the head? That's what revolutionaries do. Are you going to burn down buildings? Are you going to barricade a street? These are legit questions. And the fact that you are DXE, that as soon as I write to you, the reply I get is from DXE. DXE endorses various forms of, quote, violence against property, unquote, which leads to violence against human beings. That's what it leads to.
I think the fact that they're making murky claims and that their website doesn't really have that much. Okay, you're right. It doesn't have that much information. It just.
We pretty much just read it all. Sorry, but yeah, come on, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe they are under the impression that it could make their movement look edgy and attract people to it. But to me, I think that kind of signals that it's maybe unorganized or shoddy. Like they don't really know what people are being invited to do.
You know, I wrote to them seeking more information. That's very clear in my first message. I wrote to them seeking more information, and they gave me none. That's a red flag. And the only other indication I have is that the name of the person who replied to me is a Direct Action Everywhere stooge. So I don't have any crazy conspiracy theory about this. But I would tend to assume that this is a coalition and a front organization put together so that Direct Action Everywhere can recruit more people, and so that Direct Action Everywhere could have a kind of round table that these other groups would sit at, despite the odious reputation that Direct Action Everywhere has earned in the last couple of years.
À-bas-le-ciel. À-bas-le-ciel.
You know it's winter in the tropics because my best girl actually has a jacket on. And it is possible for us to record this video or read a book or do anything without an electric fan directly blowing on us at all times. So you get a little bit of separation from the electric fans in your life. I think we're living in a really interesting transitional time in politics. So we did talk about this a little bit while walking around town before making the video. But like back in the 1960s or the 1930s, if you were getting involved in politics, you would really depend on pamphlets and rumor, word of mouth, to find out who were your political leaders, especially at the local level. What did they really represent? What was their real agenda? And look, this word agenda has a variety of meanings. You know, all of us have more than one agenda. I said openly in writing this letter to these guys, these vegans at Nation Rising, look, I got more than one agenda. I'm interested in First Nations and the Cree and the Ojibwe and the Mohawks. I've got more than one political interest. I've got more than one iron in the fire.
The word agenda itself doesn't mean hidden or secrecy.
Right.
Yeah, or evil.
What is the difference between having an agenda and having an objective? I mean, I have more than one political objective, and I know people judge me by all of them, and that's fair. Like I could imagine there would be some vegan who wouldn't want to be associated with me politically because they disagree with me on the First Nations issue, or for any of the other issues that have been addressed in my 770 videos on this channel.
Or because they think you're communist, which is hilariously ironic.
Because they think I'm too left-wing. Because I'm too left-wing. No, that's unlikely to happen. Much more likely other vegans will be more left-wing than me and think I'm too moderate. They wouldn't use that term, but they'll come to some conclusion like that. But look, the point is, implicitly here, today in 2017, people can judge. People can judge themselves. People hear stupid, ugly rumors about me all the time, or defamation and insults made up by other vegans. And you can have a look for yourself. You can hear in my own words, in my own tone of voice. You can hear what my political philosophy is. You can hear my position on any specific issue. And you can decide for yourself whether or not I'm somebody you can work with, somebody you'd cooperate with in the vegan movement. This is a unique period of our history that way. We've never had that luxury before. Think of yourself in terms of local politics, especially 1930s or 1960s. Somebody tells you, well, look, some of the guys in the Black Panthers are okay, but this particular guy has a background as a drug dealer or as a criminal or as a pimp, and some did. A lot of history books today are celebrating that rather than lamenting it, but at the time, that some of the guys who were black radicals had a criminal background, before, after, or during their black radicalism. When you're in that position, what do? At that time, you can't Google them. You can't go to Google and put the person's name in and find out more. You can't approach them face-to-face and ask. You can't walk up and say, look, man, I got your pamphlet. I like what your political movement is ostensibly about. However, this is what people are saying about you. I don't really know where you stand on these issues. In terms of people having more than one agenda, more than one hidden agenda, you can imagine being involved with a group like the Black Panthers, and then you hear that some of the people within the organization are communists. Some of them were. And you think you don't want to be a part of that. You don't want your name to be on the same bill with those people. By the way, just mention, I knew a white man who was not only the first white member of the Black Panthers, but he was at all their founding meetings. So he was one of the first 50 members. He was one of the original roundtable of people who founded the Black Panthers. And he had some really interesting insights on the history of that movement and how it started and who the different people were influencing the movement as it progressed from its early stages. So just mentioning, he was often the only white man in the room at those meetings, as you can imagine. Yeah.
The disadvantage of this age is that rumors can spread a lot more easily on the internet.
Sure.
Like specifically for you, my family was really concerned when we were first getting together because there were these rumors online about you. And it really is up to the person to listen to your videos and actually put in the time to see your side of the story versus someone else's side of the story and determine, hey, is this person more reliable? Like, who should I, who's the better historian? Like, anyway, so that is a disadvantage. You have to be able to look at a source and see if it's reliable or something that you can go from.
Your point is the rumors can spread maybe in a more dynamic way today. Rumors can spread more rapidly.
Yeah,
but the antidote is right there.
They're documented, right? Like you were just saying, someone in the Black Panthers could be accused of being a communist, and that rumor could just kind of dissipate because it's not everywhere on the internet. I think the internet makes things somewhat permanent. More
I feel more comfortable with the system today though, because at least then you can also address those things once, right? Like I can make one video saying no, I'm not a communist, and no, I'm not a former dope dealer, and then it sits there, and anyone who wants to see it can look it up. I think the opposite. I think it's hard to imagine how in the pre-internet era you'd be hounded by the same questions again and again.
Yeah.
And some of them might be these same kind of rumors. Are you a communist? Are you a criminal? What about the rumors surrounding your divorce, or did you cheat on your wife or girlfriend? I think all those questions were still there, but then how do you deal with them at a town hall meeting, at face-to-face interactions with other people in politics? I think it's a much more intractable problem in the pre-internet era. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the rumors start quicker and go further and so on in our internet age. Now, this is the weird thing. Nation Rising. It's a terrible name. Who was at the roundtable meeting that came up with this name? There's a new vegan would-be political movement called Nation Rising. I don't even know why they're called Nation Rising. I mean, if I went and I just put like Nation Rising politics into Google. And, guess what you get? It sounds like a white nationalist movement. It sounds like some kind of fascist far-right movement. It's a very poor choice of name. And then on the other hand, that kind of sentiment, nation rising, that kind of phraseology is associated with First Nations people. Actually, I got one link out of Google for a Hawaiian revival movement, the native people of Hawaii trying to come back from the brink of genocide, trying to revive their language and cultural heritage and so on. So this idea of nation rising, why?
Yeah, maybe they're just trying to be obtuse about it, and like that they're not a vegan movement, or appeal to people who aren't vegan. But
I see what you mean. Right. So sorry. Yeah. So they want to appeal to people who are outside of the vegan fold or something. Okay. Yeah. Maybe that's
people that care about reducing the subsidies for the dairy industry, but aren't really vegan. I don't know.
Those people.
It's a very small number of people that
those people. Would you
to.
describe them as a nation? Would you describe? I don't even want to describe vegans as a nation. Like, that's what I thought the point was. Like, there's like a nation of vegans that's ready to rise up. But if you're talking about this larger category of soft core, slightly uncomfortable with government subsidies for the meat industry, not really vegan, maybe not even reducitarian, are they a nation? Do they comprise a nation that's going to rise up and change the history of Canada? I don't see it. Okay, and so it's weak. But their main tagline, the main thing they give you in their pamphlet, so to speak, is the claim, quote, "It's not a protest, period. It's a revolution, period." So this is very problematic for me. Now, I didn't just come on the internet and complain about it. I wrote to them. In the great Canadian tradition, I wrote to them for more information. And who do I get a reply from? I get a reply from a member of Direct Action Everywhere, DXE, right? So this is the problem. Nation Rising, it's basically, we know nothing beyond that. We don't know who they are. We don't know anything about them personally. And in politics, everybody is somebody. Everybody has to stand on that platform and be judged for all their miscellaneous political beliefs. I said before, there are some people, it's not integral to my life as an aspiring vegan activist that I have a position on First Nations languages, that I have a position on Cree and Ojibwe. That's something I care about. You can judge me. It tells you something about me. It tells you something about who I am. But with this kind of thing, so you're looking at a blank facade, a blank propaganda claim. They use the name Nation Rising, and they say what they're doing is not a protest. It's a revolution. All right, we'll see if they live.
The picture in the background looks suspiciously like a protest.
I mean, I'd be so much more comfortable with what they're doing if they said the exact opposite. If they said, "Don't worry, we're not leading a revolution. It's just a protest." I'd be like, "Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not that bad. I mean, you're not going to burn anything down, right? I mean, Okay. What does it mean? What does it mean in this day and age to make promises of revolution and to do it in a completely anonymous way? It seems to me like we're throwing away all the advantages of the 21st century, an era when it's really possible to know someone's political beliefs in a meaningful way, when it's possible to interact with them. You can watch my YouTube channel, you can join my Patreon, you can ask me questions, and then I make videos replying to those questions, and there's progress. That's the great thing about politics in the 21st century. You're throwing all of that away to instead have an anonymous facade, promises of revolution, and we're left to wonder, who are these people? What do they represent politically? What are their beliefs? Now, look, I mean, obviously you're under no obligation to do so. But even the woman who replied to my email, I don't know if she's the organizer. I don't know. She's just the woman who replied to my email. I don't think she has anything to be ashamed about. If she made this, if she put her name on it, she said this is her protest, reflecting her values and who she is. If she's in the leadership role, okay, maybe I can sign on to that. Maybe I can talk to her. Maybe I can find out. Maybe I can read her resume, find out more about her. You know what I mean? I think, again, this is a lot of my criticism of both political attitudes and religious attitudes. I think these people perceive weakness as strength. They think it's a strength to have this stark revolutionary facade. Who are we? We're anonymous. We're nobody. We're all wearing a mask. You don't know who we are. You don't know what we believe, what we represent. When they were calling for revolution and talking about a so-called national uprising. Well, I don't know. Maybe this is a facade, and underneath the facade, you're a couple of dorks from Direct Action Everywhere who are aware that Direct Action Everywhere, DXE, has become kind of so, what's the word? So ominous. Its reputation has become such a liability that you need to create a new front in order to reach out to and have common cause with Toronto Pig Save, and a couple of other organizations that are listed on the website. Animal Justice, and not all of these are vegan. Some of these are non-vegan animal rights groups that are on thing. Anonymous with voices. So.
I just love what you said in your response to or your first emails, or that revolutions have body counts, and I think maybe people don't think about revolution in historical terms like as much as you do, because you've studied revolutions in Russia and China, and people don't really think about
right.
People don't think about it in that way. I think the meaning of revolution has. It's lost its meaning a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think it's funny, too, because they could present this information in some other way. They could be making a comparison to the Industrial Revolution, the Scientific Revolution. There are other ways we use the word revolution. But I'm not being insincere. When you look at this, it is, I think, trying to capture the ambiance of
a political protest.
Well, I'd say specifically anarchist or anarcho-communist, left-wing, revolutionary ardor, which vegans very often lack. Now, okay, look, let's briefly say here, what is it they're actually calling for? This is the weird thing. This is the paradoxical thing. What they're calling for isn't revolutionary. What they're calling for is an end to government subsidies for the meatpacking industry, and they want the government to have support for farmers making the transition, so that farmers don't suddenly become unemployed overnight.
Yeah, which is great. I think their About Us page has some really good information in it. I think it's good.
Well, okay, there's about 6 sentences here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use the word information.
Well, okay.
But that's their platform. They want to end government subsidies. They want to help farmers with that transition. And they even say we are a love-based movement. We are not trying to destroy farmers. So this is really paradoxical. So why would you say it's not a protest, it's a revolution? Why wouldn't you say, look, guys, this isn't a revolutionary movement. This is a totally reasonable request to amend the tax code, to amend how taxation works in Canada. And here's how we're going to accomplish it. Here's the plan. We're going to do it the same way PCRM does, the same way any other lobbying for government change does. It makes no sense. Instead, what they want to do is front on some kind of left-wing radical aesthetic.
Yeah, I remember when Bernie was running for president, Bernie Sanders, and if you actually went to his website, he really gave a good outline of every single thing that he was hoping to accomplish as president. And I think more politicians and political groups such as this one should use that as a model to actually have.
Okay. Create new subsidies to ensure healthy organic. We're against organic. Organic is not vegan, as mentioned. They probably don't know that organic involves using cow blood as fertilizer and so on. Anyway, and cow poo too. But anyway, create new subsidies to ensure healthy organic plant-based food is affordable for everyone, in particular Indigenous and low-income communities.
Okay.
What's revolutionary about this? Why is this a revolution? Why is this a nation rising? Why package it that way? Why approach it that way? Now, okay, a funny thing is, I don't know if there's any point in reading out the whole email correspondence, but I think I got to do this. I wrote to her, say her because that's the person who responded. I wrote to Nation Rising and wrote, "Hello, I'm a Canadian vegan activist with a YouTube channel that has hundreds of discussions of vegan politics, etc." Again, we're well above 700 videos at this point, so that's not a boast. Although I would obviously support an end to subsidies for animal agriculture, and this is, for example, a significant source of tension between myself or any given vegan and the Green Party, as the Green Party actually calls for more subsidies to support the Canadian meat and dairy farmers. The current situation with Nation Rising is, 1, I do not know enough about who or what the organization is. This is being totally sincere, guys. I just want to emphasize this again. This is the difference between politics in the 1930s, 1960s, and politics today in the 21st century, where you can read my resume, you can read my work history, you can come on YouTube, you can know who I am politically, you can decide for yourself whether or not you want to support what I support, whether or not you want to stand where I stand. And I got to tell you, I don't want to support Direct Action Everywhere. Direct Action Everywhere, in and out of court all the time. They're facing criminal charges right now. They're trying to defend themselves against charges of terrorism. I don't want any part of that. I do not want my name attached to DXE, and I don't want to be a part of Nation Rising if they're a front organization for DXE. I wrote to Nation Rising. This was called Nation Rising. Sorry, Not Nation Uprising, Nation Rising, right? Got it. It's like Cake Rising. Anyway, look, Nation Rising. I wrote to them. I get a reply from someone in DXE. To me, that's a really bad sign. Oh, well, I don't want to be part of DXE. This is a choice I've made after doing real research. I want to know who you people are and what you represent, and yes, what your agenda is. I've already said agenda is not a bad word, what your objectives are. And I think in the 21st century, I have a right to know. I don't have to make this political decision anymore on the basis of just a pamphlet. We should be able to know more about this, about who you are, what you represent, and what methods you're going to use to pursue it. You say it's not just a protest. You say it's a revolution. Okay, so are you going to occupy a building? Are you going to burn it down? What you say it's not a protest. So what am I being invited to? A revolution. Are you going to shoot people to the head? That's what revolutionaries do. Are you going to burn down buildings? Are you going to barricade a street? These are legit questions. And the fact that you are DXE, that as soon as I write to you, the reply I get is from DXE. DXE endorses various forms of, quote, violence against property, unquote, which leads to violence against human beings. That's what it leads to.
I think the fact that they're making murky claims and that their website doesn't really have that much. Okay, you're right. It doesn't have that much information. It just.
We pretty much just read it all. Sorry, but yeah, come on, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe they are under the impression that it could make their movement look edgy and attract people to it. But to me, I think that kind of signals that it's maybe unorganized or shoddy. Like they don't really know what people are being invited to do at this point.
I'd say
that's just my impression that from looking at this website. It's like, if you're going to put up a website and invite people to do something, you should have like clear goals and as you say talk about your agenda. Like
you said, you should have a full platform like Bernie Sanders. You use that comparison where you actually expose what he's going to do and how he's going to do it.
It would be more professional and it would attract a different character of people, I think.
Well, if you're asking people to sign up and donate their time, donate their money, and attend a protest that is not a protest, then I want to know what it is. What am I donating money to? Who am I being associated with, and so on. And again, for me, if it's DXE, I don't want to play.
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of the same group as DXE. So these are decisions we all have to make in politics. But again, I think what you're describing is again a fundamental problem of perceiving weakness as strength. I think that idea of, okay, we're going to have a clean facade, nobody's name is on it, nobody's particular political beliefs are on it. We're going to have this clean revolutionary aesthetic. I think they perceive that as strength, but it's really weak. Now, again, this comes up in the email.
Right.
I think I make a number of contrasts here. One contrast is to the Green Party. But if you support the Green Party, you know exactly who you're supporting. And at different times, different people have been leaders of the Green Party. Sometimes they were really left-wing, sometimes not so much. The character of the party and what goals they're pursuing really has changed, from year to year and decade to decade. But you know who. My point is here, you know what you're supporting because, first and foremost, you know who you're supporting. That's how you find that out. I mentioned Dr. Melanie Joy. So if you join a political movement founded by Dr. Melanie Joy, you know who she is. You can look up her resume. You can read her book. You can see her YouTube channel. You find out who she is. That's the great step forward from the pre-internet past when all you had maybe was a pamphlet and some rumors and accusations that you couldn't really counteract.
You could be right-wing extremists. You could be left-wing extremists. You could be a coalition that formed out of ecological activists. I know nothing from the available materials about what your organization is or who formed it. Right.
And again, I think those would be questions I would be asking in the 1960s. If someone just handed me a pamphlet and say, hey, a lot of those movements said, hey, coalition for peace, but they were actually a coalition for communism. Some of them said, coalition for black rights. Well, what kind of black rights do you support? Again, that's a real question. There's 1,000. Some are violent, some are nonviolent. Different methods, different approaches. You've got to dig past the pamphlet. And in this case, they've kind of defied the logic of the internet. We only get that pamphlet. Okay, there's a difficult to understand contrast between the nonviolent demand to end subsidies and the rhetoric about revolution. I'm an old political science major. I've written quite a lot of research about real revolutions. They have real body counts. Please understand that I'm the sort of person who researches vegan institutions or movements precisely because I want to understand what works and what doesn't. And this research does not indicate hostility. I actually read the annual reports from groups as diverse as PETA, DXE, etc. Right? Now, DXE got mentioned there, but she doesn't actually recognize it. So I get this reply from Jenny. Hi, Eisel. Thanks for your message. We are a group of animal rights activists who want to see an end to animal agriculture subsidies. There is no hidden political agenda. It's just as simple as it sounds. Is it just as simple as revolution? It's just as simple as it's not a protest, it's a revolution. It's just as simple as it's not meat, it's violence. It's just as simple as no compromise to animal exploiters. Like, think about all the slogans DXE has thrown out, which really are similar to this. And then, of course, they prove themselves to be hypocrites. Even that ridiculous situation with DXE protesting a specific specific butcher shop in California, in Berkeley, California. They did end up compromising. They did end up hammering. That's exactly what they swore they'd never do. They wouldn't stop till it was shut down. Well, you said, okay, so you're promising it's not a protest, it's a revolution. Are we going to see you live up to that promise? We want it to end for the good of the people, the planet, and the animals. We're trying to bring together people and orgs who care about these 3 issues to make it happen. So I wrote back saying, okay, thanks for the reply. There was no discussion of any hidden agenda in my message. I think that's worth drawing attention to here. There is some paranoia in her reply, and it may be paranoia that's well-founded. Because I didn't ask about a hidden agenda. I just said it's difficult to know who your organization is or what you represent. You could be right-wing extremists, you could be left-wing extremists, you could be ecological activists. I need to know more. You don't provide me with this. And again, they sound like neo-Nazis. Nation Rising. It sounds like a white supremacist group. That's so, I didn't say anything about a hidden agenda. However, everybody is somebody. I'm a vegan activist, but for example, I also have past involvement with First Nations, indigenous languages. So yes, for example, I have an agenda in as much as I care about the Cree language not going extinct. For most vegans, this is neither good nor bad, but merely interesting. It is something about who I am politically. Likewise, every organization, even PETA, etc., reflects the political reality of its founders. DXE is an extreme example in some ways. To understand what DXE is and what it does, you really need to understand the idiosyncratic political views and experiences of Wayne and Priya, the 2 people who are at the top of that organization. That's very true. But that's true of most political organizations, small, medium, or large. I mean, even when you get into really large political organizations, you want to understand what's going on in the U.S. occupation government of Iraq. We just saw this documentary about that. It comes down to a small number of personalities, You need to know about a couple of people for what that organization is, what it's doing. Talking about one department in a university, but, small and medium-sized political organizations is even more true.
Absolutely. And it's kind of easy to hide behind the fact that they are supported by Toronto Pig Save and some of these other organizations that are on their website. They're able to hide behind that and say, we're not... I don't know who the founders are. What they're advertising is that it's a group, what she says in the email.
It's just a nation rising. Yeah.
She said, we want to bring together people and organizations who care about these 3 issues to make it happen.
Right.
So, yeah.
But to make what happen?
Yeah.
Not a protest, a revolution. Yeah, anyway.
Right. Revolution to end.
Revolution and...
subsidies.
Revolutionary tax reforms, right.
Yeah.
Look, something else you said this when we talked about it before. You said that maybe this exists to reach out beyond veganism to bring in people who are not vegan who would support this. And I said, yeah, but then the revolutionary get-up, the revolutionary shtick is even worse. Because in theory, the only public you'd be able to reach in Canada like that would normally be conservatives and libertarians who are against...
are not attracted to this prose, this rhetoric, like you said, to
right. Well, there's a kind of segment of the public who are just really big on not wasting taxpayers' dollars.
Right.
Normally, small C conservative or big L libertarian or something. Mm-hmm. Those people could get behind this, but not if you're promising a revolution. Yeah. Not if you package yourself in this way.
Yeah, like I've talked to my dad about this. He's a conservative, and he's been like, yeah, you're right. I don't think that we should subsidize it. So not because he's vegan, but because he's a conservative.
There are people who on point of principle, free market principle, or not wasting taxpayers' dollars principle, would support you, but you got to put yourself in a lane where you can be supported by them, where you're really making common cause. So I don't know if that's what they're trying to do or not. I think it looks like not that much thought went into it. But look, again, being self-critical here. I mean, I've said, okay, if you want to understand a political organization like DXE, you have to understand the idiosyncratic leaders and who they are. And believe me, within the last 5 years, most of the changes at DXE, they have idiosyncratic as the word. They've come down to particular knee-jerk reactions from Wayne and Priya. Sorry, not to get in a big digression, but for example, they used to preach that they were a strictly horizontal organization with no leadership, and then they got rid of that entirely, and now they say they're a vertical organization with clear leaders and hierarchy and elections, and then they have scandals with the elections. So things have changed, but they have changed because Wayne has changed, because one man has changed and his girlfriend, one woman, Now, if you and I start our own foundation in Canada,
it's up to people if they want to get involved in it.
Yeah.
You have a plethora of videos about your political views online, so people can see if they want to get behind our organization.
But, remember also my criticism of Black Lives Matter. I said, look, they don't define who they are and what they do in their constitution. They need to take the time to write a better definition. I would take the time to make a better website or better constitution than Nation Rising or Black Lives Matter. Yeah. However, my point is this criticism still applies to me or still applies to us. People would be able to look at an organization and say, well, I don't think they're going to tackle this issue. Okay, like that fundraiser Sorry. I was invited to join a fundraiser for an animal sanctuary. And I said, well, look, if you actually check my channel, this is my position on the issue. And the people making the invitation said, well, we're still happy to have you. And I said, well, without knowing more about the situation, I don't think I can do it.
Yeah, it was interesting that Chris Hines had made videos sort of reflecting things that you have said.
He agrees with me on a lot of the issues.
And he was a part of it too.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
You could have been in it.
I'm not
just to be a differing point of view.
I'm not saying that's a black and white issue. It's not like I think all sanctuaries are evil. However, my point is, if you and I in the future being involved in vegan politics, people would be able to look at who we are and know what we stand for and what we represent and which issues we will and won't take what position on and what that organization is likely to do.
I'm sure it's not going to be horse-drawn carriages.
Right. I've repeatedly said I'm not going to protest against horse-drawn carriages, right? So, in that same way, you need to know who are the leaders. What is the leadership? And obviously, in this case, they're claiming they don't have any constitution or any program of action or any agenda beyond this simple point about subsidies. Maybe. But I don't know. You're not inviting me in, so probably you got some principles that exclude me. Probably, and maybe I got some principles that exclude you too, if we can figure out who we are on this side. So this point, I stated here very simply, everybody is somebody. And the great advantage of doing politics in the 21st century is that it's knowable. We can move beyond the pamphlet to know who these people are and what they represent and also what methods they will and won't employ. So I'm big on democratic transparency. I'm big on participating in the democratic organs of the government we've got and also internally being democratic ourselves. DXE is the exact opposite on those two issues. They both don't use the democratic organs of the United States of America and Canada and so on. They don't use democratic methods in that sense, scaling it up. And internally, they are not democratic. They're not transparent. They're the opposite of democracy. Well, or tyrannical or whatever you want to say. I have a playlist of videos talking about politics of DXE. And I just want to say again, too, I make those videos with sympathy for the devil. I do have sympathy for the other side. I can imagine what situation I'd be in if I were playing for that team or if I were in Wayne's position and so on. Okay, so I continue with my letter here. So my point here is that someone who wanted to get involved would have no sense of who and what your organization is beyond a very vague slogan. And the slogan itself is really not that accurate. Either what you're offering isn't a revolution or else it is. And I'm assuming that the honest answer is that no, you're not revolutionaries. Not in your politics, not in your praxis. Please understand I'm not claiming to be perfect. My own situation as a vegan activist is, for example, people hear about me because I've written a children's book about veganism. Then someone else tells them, no, that guy's a conservative, don't support him. They can look at my YouTube channel and decide for themselves if I'm a conservative or not. In fact, I'm not, but I understand why some extremely left-wing people perceive me that way. And so on. In 2017, I don't know if such vague political platitudes linked to vague calls for revolution are really the way to organize people. I can say for my part that this is a weaker start than calls for action that come from specific organizers with specific resumes. Compare, for example, the failed attempt of Dr. Melanie Joy, or organizations that really disclose who they are and what they want to accomplish and what methods they will and won't use. For example, PCRM, very successful, or the Go Vegan World Group, originally started in Ireland, right? So that's it. Look, I don't make this video now claiming to be an expert on Nation Rising. I don't think anyone can claim that. I think they've put themselves in a precarious position for no good reason, where nobody can really know who this organization is or what they represent, or just who organizes them, who's making the decisions, who's going to be responsible if they're massively successful or if it all goes terribly wrong. They list the logos of a number of different organizations. If you scroll down to the bottom of their webpage, one of those logos is Direct Action Everywhere. I should make another video about this ASAP. Direct Action Everywhere are facing charges of terrorism. And you can go on YouTube now and hear Wayne's long lecture about why he doesn't consider himself a terrorist, even if legally he's got to bite that bullet. He's got to face those charges, I do not want it on my resume. It's just a terrible name to begin with that I had anything to do with Nation Rising. I don't want to list that. Like, oh, yeah, I was a member of Nation Rising. What? That doesn't look good in my resume. I don't want any positive connection between myself and Direct Action Everywhere. And, I wrote to them seeking more information. That was very clear in my first message. I wrote to them seeking more information, and they gave me none. That's a red flag. And the only other indication I have is that the name of the person who replied to me is a Direct Action Everywhere stooge. So I don't have any crazy conspiracy theory about this, but I would tend to assume that this is a coalition and a front organization put together so that Direct Action Everywhere can recruit more people, and so that Direct Action Everywhere could have a kind of round table that these other groups would sit at, despite the odious reputation that Direct Action Everywhere has earned in the last couple of years. That's all I know. I wrote to them asking for more information so that I could know more, and they have completely failed to provide that information.